Hey everybody, the amateur historian here, just killing some time. Mostly just trying to get into the flow of the day because my sleep schedule is gone, like completely gone. I have no sleep. Sleep cycle doesn't exist in my world anymore. Like 4 nights in a row. By the time I've actually gone to sleep, the the sky's been getting bright. Like the sun's, well, sun theoretically is coming up. Every other day it's cloudy and rainy. It's cloudy, rainy, sunny, cloudy, rainy, sunny. Um, Quick memento. I should have done this before I started, but I gotta keep my eyes. Oh god, my Mario Kart race is about to start. Oh, I better be prepared for it. Come from behind victory. Oh my god, so we're 30 seconds into the race. I'm doing my usual. I probably should start racing. I waited till 8 seconds after the race started. Start going. It's all right. I'll still win. I'm a god at this game, which cannot be said for pretty much any other game I've ever played. Um, but yeah, I wanted to get on here. I could have easily done a random video or whatever, but this, I can live stream this and then it becomes a video on my channel. So it kind of, instead of just doing a video by itself, I can live stream it and some people will see it that way. And and then eventually it becomes a video and people can see it that way. So here I am. Because, we're probably going to be quarantined for at least another, I'm thinking minimum, like, well, I know the state of emergency got extended to July 6th, I think, in Oregon. Now, that's the state of emergency. A lot of people saw that and thought, we're quarantined till July 6th. But stay-at-home order and state of emergency are not quite the same thing. State of emergency pretty much means we're going to have to spend a lot of money. But yeah, who knows how much longer this actual state of required quarantine. It just depends on what happens. I actually got on a thing today. Yep, still won the race. So there's a thing on Oregon Live that shows by zip code how many different or how many people in a given zip code have been officially shown to have coronavirus. Now, yeah, in my zip code, there's officially been only 16 people, I believe is what it said. Only 16 people in my zip code have gotten coronavirus, and that's, over the course of time. That doesn't mean necessarily that 16 people have coronavirus in my zip code right now. It doesn't necessarily mean there isn't 16 people, but it's interesting because there's about 16,000 people living in my zip code. So it's pretty much like 1 out of every 1,000 people has it in my zip code, which isn't bad considering, how some other places are. But there's a zip code just to the southeast of us that has like the most cases in pretty much the east side of Portland, which is interesting because that county or that zip code kind of stands out. But that was an interesting find, and it can kind of give you an idea of how things are looking directly around you. Like if I'm only going to be hanging out in my general neighborhood, if I do have to go out, at least I know generally where we're at. And if they say 16 people, obviously there's, people that get it that are asymptomatic. There's people that may have gotten it in the last couple of days that aren't showing symptoms yet. But even then, it seems like it'll be mild. It makes me feel a little bit better. Obviously, I still wear the mask. I still bring my sanitizer. I do all that stuff. I try to be in and out of the store. But at least it is a calming thing when you see that barely, even though, this has been a big deal for almost 2 months now, it's nice to see that there's still barely anybody in my whole zip code area that's gotten it. It helps kind of, because you got to keep taking it seriously. You got to, protect yourself and protect others. So there's kind of this combination, like you're still taking it seriously and protecting yourself, but you can alleviate some of that anxiety about having to go out, which I've had every time I go to the store. When I go out and do and I've only done like 5 store runs since this started, and it's pretty much all been going to small local, corner markets. They get fewer people. And I've even then I still get some anxiety over being out there, especially if I see a lot of people walking around and I'm like, some of them are going to be near me. And so hopefully that'll alleviate some of that, because there's literally a 1 in 1,000 chance at best that at any given moment I'm going to randomly encounter somebody with coronavirus. And that's much more likely if I'm just out wandering all around my general zip code. Um, so acknowledging, and still trying to be, the busy bee that I am, while, not completely overworking myself. Yeah, I've been working, well now, there's been things I've wanted to do videos on that were either cases that took place, really far away from me. So they're places I can't go to. Or they're cases that I could get to pertinent sites in the case, but it would take forever. So I've put it off for the sake of, if I am going to go out and do content, go into places that it isn't going to take me an hour to get to just to do one brief little thing. So those videos I'm kind of starting to push forward to do work on. And it's because, like, there was always the potential that I could do these videos without having to actually go to the local. But that's such an important thing to me with my channel, is the going to the sites where things happen. That's so important to me. So I hate doing videos where I know I can get to a site and then I don't. But I also know that that's what's holding me back on a few videos, because I'm like, I don't want to burn 3-4 hours out of a day to get one little bit for one big video. Like, my time is too valuable to me. Even right now, when there's, not going to my day job, stuck at home, hours go by, but I'm trying to still, be productive with my time. And so I'm starting to organize doing some videos on cases that I've been holding off. Like, I did some research on the disappearance of the Martin family back in the late 1950s, but I did that like about a year and a half ago, and the information's just been sitting there, and it's because the preponderance of stuff in that case happened several miles east of where I live, so I obviously can't go there by myself. So I'm reading there was a book recently written by a local author, historian. Was it J.B. Fisher, who, yeah, I was going to try to interview for my Woman in the River documentary, but by the time I got to a point where I was going to probably ask him, I was so bored of working on the thing, and I just wanted to get it done at that point, so I never ended up in it. But he wrote a book that I'm actually reading right now called Echo of Distant Water. That is his own in-depth investigation into the disappearance of the Martin family. Because so far what I've found is just, your general stuff, your Wikipedia articles, your local news articles. I found a few things on newspapers.com, but it's still just the general stuff. And obviously I can't go out and find more stuff right now. So I feel like his book is going to be a really significant resource in my doing that video. Just like when I did my video on the murder in Forest Park, which I'm actually really glad is getting a lot of views now, because that's probably one of my videos that I put the most time in and that I enjoyed making the most. But it was about the unsolved 1960 murder of a young couple who were in their car on a back street up in the West Hills. And someone came along and it looks like brutally murdered the guy, Larry Payton, and then probably took the girlfriend, who was named Beverly Allen. Because when the crime scene was discovered, Larry was found alone in his car, and Beverly was nowhere to be found, and she was ultimately found in pretty much a ditch along a highway heading towards the Oregon coast. So they'd both ultimately been pretty brutally murdered. And a local historian guy named Phil Stafford wrote a book on that, and that was a super invaluable source for me. A lot of the stuff I talk about, a lot of the other suspects in the case, besides the people that eventually went on trial, a lot of that I didn't know about till I read his book, and then I was able to use what I learned from his book to fan out and try to specific. I mean, if some guy named Mike gets murdered by a guy named James Jones, like if I don't know about this James Jones as a suspect, I'm not going to know to research him. So once you discover this guy, James Jones, then you can actually start looking him up in relation to the case you're looking at, and boom, you've discovered more sources. Yeah, sometimes it's really that simple. When I started this video, I was gonna talk about the good old days of going to the library. I haven't checked an item out from the library since probably 2009, 2010, maybe even 2008. And I used to go to the library all the time, and then I ended up checking out a bunch of stuff and forgetting I had it. And I built up like a $50 late fee bill for the Clackamas Library, which I've still never paid off. And so I stopped checking stuff out because you couldn't check stuff out until you paid off. And I was, this is when I had just gotten, a little after I'd gotten my first job. I was making literally like, still going to school, and I wasn't working that much, and I was living at home. So I had the benefit of not having to. And like, seriously, I was making like $7,000 a year. And during that time, I was having to pay off my car. I literally had to keep paying off my car insurance. I think up till even after I didn't have a car anymore. And here I was making like $600, $700 a month. And I had to pay like 200 to 220 a month in car insurance for like 2 years because of this stupid effing thing that I'm thinking about doing a video on as well, just talking about how, everybody at one point, the system screws you, and this would be a story about the one time that the system really screwed me, or rather the Clackamas County Police Department, or a Clackamas County officer screwed me. But that's a video for another day. So yeah, and I just remember going, because I lived in Clackamas County, and I love going to the libraries all the time. And I was going to like reflect back on that and the fact that like, the few times I've gone to the library since then, like I don't check anything out. And I haven't even gotten like a local library card. And it's like, I should, because here I am trying to study history stuff, and, I'll find, books. I'm like, oh, I'd love to read that. Oh, but it's going to cost $20 to buy that book. Well, maybe they have it at the library somewhere. Obviously, I ain't going to a library anytime soon, but yeah, I was going to kind of talk about that stuff, but now I feel like I didn't want to be on here for too long. My last live stream murdered my throat, and I was on here for like 2.5 hours. Granted, talking about a lot of stuff. But I mostly wanted to just get in touch with y'all about what's upcoming on my channel. So I'm going to work on something with the Martin family. I just finished a video, and for some reason I think my editing software has a quirk where if you minimize the window that's open that it's doing it in, there's a better chance that it randomly will fail and just not finish exporting the video. And so like I tried like 5-6 times and it wasn't working. And I was like, I'm going to keep trying till you export it, because I spent like 2-3 days straight working on this. So you're going to export. I've never had a video that just in the end did not export with this software. And I've edited hundreds of videos on this channel. So I was like, something this big that I spent so much time on, you are not going to screw me on this. This is not going to be the first one that just doesn't work. And like the 6th or 7th time, I set it up, but I didn't minimize the window. It was just open the whole time. And it exported. It exported the whole video. So that'll be posted at some point, but that's done. So yeah, I'm focusing in on a few more of these intense stories, and there's a story that I've wanted to do a video on for like 2 years now, and it's one of those ones where the location where it happened is like southeast of Gresham, like starting to get out towards, there's only like one bus that gets you anywhere near where this event happened. So it's one of those ones that I've been holding off, because literally there is a bus that goes kind of near that vicinity, but I would literally have to catch a bus, wait about 45 minutes for that second bus to get to this location, where this event happened, and then, when I'm done, and I would only be there for like probably less than 30 minutes. I'd have to wait who knows how long for that bus, and then wait and it's one of those things where I would have gotten a minimal footage and burned like a couple hours out in the middle of nowhere. So I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, because like when I'd wake up and be like, I want to go out and vlog today, it was like I want to get a lot of content done. I don't want to burn, I can usually go about 5-6 hours straight, out and about vlogging before I start getting kind of wiped out. And, just going to this one site would have burned like, probably at least half that time. So it's just, and it's something I'm not apprehensive about doing it. I'm not a big fan of doing recent cases, because the more recent the case is, the more you get responses from people. And I hate the really aggressive confrontational comments, people that can't handle your perspective on things. And it's like, especially when it's about, lost my train of thought. Especially if it's a really sensitive story, an unsolved murder case. Like, I'm not going to go into this stuff talking about, or I'm not going to go into this without having I'm not doing this for the views. Like, I've been posting content continuously for over 3 years, and I have 1,150 subscribers, and I've been chugging through during that time. But one case I really want to do a video on, I have, my perspectives on it, so on and so forth, is, sorry, my guy just went in the lava. I really want to do a video about the, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I need to go back and look at the news video. Is the 1994 case of a guy named, I think it was Tyrone Theis. His name's kind of spelled Theis, whatnot, and essentially the official story is he'd worked at this kind of service station place, and apparently, he'd gotten busted for, like, I think he stole $30 out of the till, and got suspended, and then eventually decided to quit. And he had this really sketchy, skeezy cousin, who he apparently went in on this. And then there was another woman who was kind of the third person with them, and was reportedly, I've heard that she was sleeping with both Theis and the cousin. I've also heard that she was just sleeping with the cousin. And apparently, like, that was something that kind of broke the case, was the woman admitted to her husband, what had been going on, and the husband, kind of as retribution, contacted the authorities about it. That's at least one side that's been expressed in terms of how the case was broken. But it's still a fairly recent case, and 3 women died in this. So it's if you're doing a case about a missing person, where it's, you don't have to deal with the fact that somebody's dead, they're just, missing, they're gone. But maybe they're still alive out there, and we don't really know everything. That's one thing. But when you get on your YouTube soapbox and start talking about a case that has, victims and people who are, the survivors of those themes, children, friends, family, husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, the whole thing. There's a lot of emotion in that. And, I'm a lot more chill about doing my Historic Murders of Portland series, because I'm discussing all these cases that happened like 100 years ago, sometimes more. And usually they're cases nobody knows about, and they're cases where any family they may have had, they probably don't even. So there's not really, you're talking about cases that are so old that people don't even really know it. But when you're talking about a case that happened like 25, 26 years ago, and obviously it's still fresh in everybody's mind, like, it's something where like the only reason I'm doing a video is because I have my perspective on it, and it's interesting. It's a case. It's gone down as one of the most um, brutal murder cases in the history of Oregon, and yet there's barely anything out there about it. There's some news, a few news articles. Um, there's a few forums where people have talked about it, like America's Most Wanted forum, Web Sleuths, things like that. And there's literally two videos on YouTube about it. And one is a very brief video. It's just a guy giving out the general background on it. And then there's like a local news story from a couple of years ago. It's like a 4-minute clip. That is all that I can find on YouTube about this case. So, for being such a crazy murder, the case has pretty much no presence, really, which is so interesting because the guy that they, officially is the guy they think did it, the guy that was the main shooter, disappeared afterwards, and nobody has seen him since, and nobody knows what happened to him. There's, of course, theories, and, some people think he's dead, some people think he's alive. But it is a video that I've really wanted, or it's a case that I've really wanted to do a video on because, I've gone through there's some interesting comments that people have posted. And it's just an interesting case as a whole. And I want to do a video about it, but I also want to do it, respectfully. I always try to do videos respectfully when you're dealing with cases that involve people's lost loved ones, because, you got, a lot of YouTubers are just into this for the money, which obviously I'm not. So, they'll come on and they're they got their big flashy intro and their loud intro music banging in your face, and they get on, they look like they just did a line of cocaine. They're just like, "Hey, what's up, gang? I'm gonna talk to you about someone who fucking died today, or someone who died 10 years ago. Man, nobody knows what the hell happened, man." And it's obvious there's no respect for what is the subject matter. It's just, that's, the demographics that make up the most YouTube views. That seems to be what they're into. And most YouTubers that are at the top in terms of how many subscribers and views they get, that's who they are. They're a bunch of just loud, flashy douchebags. And they don't, I mean, need we mention the Suicide Forest thing with a certain YouTuber who shall remain nameless because I don't want to give the guy any attention on my channel. The most popular YouTubers around. That would have literally ostracized most people, but here we are. Guy still has millions and millions of subscribers. So yeah, I always want people to know, like, I go into this knowing full well what happened. I experienced the same thing. And, when I was 5 years old, my cousin, who was about the same age, got shot to death by a drug dealer living next door who was, showing off his gun or whatever. I've heard, a mix of stories. I've heard he was showing off his gun for friends. I've heard he was, drugged out and his friends were pulling a prank and making it look like they were sneaking into his house, and he freaked out and started firing. I believe the first story a little bit more. I read that the guy that did it thought he aimed the gun so high that it couldn't have hit anybody, and he ended up hitting my cousin in the head. So I'm no stranger to the loss of a loved one personally. I did a video about it a while back. So, I have personal experience, dealing, especially being 5 years old. I didn't even understand what that meant. Like, I knew my cousin was gone and I wasn't going to see him again. But when you're 5 years old, the concept of like when your life is gone, like that's it, everything about you is gone. You don't have a second chance. That was kind of lost on me at the time because I was so young. So when I go into these videos talking about, looking into the crimes of, at least in my case with my cousin, we knew right away who did it. There was no mystery to it. But I'm looking into a lot of cases where they don't have resolution. And even in the case of Tyrone Thies, like they think they know who was the main shooter. We just don't know where he is, what happened to him. And I have my thoughts and theories on the case that I will address. And again, if my theories don't coincide with other people on that case or any other case, that's not, you know, me being disrespectful. That's me obviously saying, like, maybe we need, I hate it when people say, like, in terms of cases where there's a lot of mystery and there's a lack of resolution. And there's those people that are like, why do you dredge up these horrible, painful memories? Haven't families gone through enough? And I'm like, I understand the families have gone, again, I've experienced that myself, but people deserve justice. And if justice is not being served, then stuff needs to continue to be looked into. That's the same crap. When people wanted to investigate the assassination of President Kennedy, everybody came out and was like, haven't the Kennedys been put through enough? Just let it go. And it's like, that's, people who don't want resolution will come out and say that, and that's where, the stuff needs to be investigated, but respectfully, that's where it all comes into play. Oh boy, I'm just rambling now. Comments are coming. I'm sorry. I'm horrible at acknowledging comment. I'm a brand new. This is my 4th live stream, and usually I'm treated like I'm vlogging, and I'm just like blah blah blah, and then I realize, oh, I'll be like, see you guys later, and it's like, oh, people commented. What's up? Hey, yes. Thank you for watching my torso document. I am so freaking, you wonder why I have no subscribers. It's because I'm horrible at responding to comments. Usually the time I check comments, is like when I'm waking up in the morning, or I pull up my phone and I'm like looking at videos. I'm like, oh, someone commented to me. That's cool. I'll get back to them later. And then I wake up and start doing stuff. And then next thing you know, 5 days have gone by and I'm like, oh crap, somebody commented on me. But yeah, thank you for watching my documentary about the woman in the river. You can tell it's better quality than the stuff I usually do, because I actually pulled out the big guns. I had pulled out and I actually interviewed local historians. That thing drained me. It was almost harder than just doing a movie. I did another film. It took 6 months to shoot the whole thing, and we had 18 canceled shooting days. It took me over a year to finish editing it. It killed me, and yet I feel like that documentary was more stressful. Kidnapping of Frank Sinatra Jr. And I should, because I've heard about it, but it's vague. Like, I know no details about it. Yeah, and as far as JFK, yeah, that's another thing that I'm doing. It's actually perfect for this thing. It's going to take forever to get done, because it's going to be like a 10-part series that I'm working on. It's based on a book. I did a video about how, like, back in like 2007 and 2008, I wrote a book on the JFK assassination, like 450 pages. And the primary objective was the case against Lee Harvey Oswald. And it's because, you got a lot of people that are, screaming conspiracy, and I believe there was a conspiracy too. But they just kind of get off on their tangents and they'll just be like, oh, well, forget about Oswald. That doesn't matter. And I'm like, well, officially, he's the guy that did it. And so you got to prove that he wasn't the guy before you just start getting off on wild tangents. You need to use the evidence to show why your case makes sense, but you also have to show why the official conclusion doesn't make sense. And, I just got so sick and tired of, like, people be like, oh, like, you're into JFK. And I'd be like, yeah, and I don't think Oswald did it. Or at least I don't think he was the assassin. And they'll be like, oh, well, who do you think was it? And I'm like, well, there's a lot of theories, and I don't know exactly who was. And the moment I say, like, I don't know exactly who it was, if it wasn't Oswald, immediately people are just like, oh, like, you lose credibility. Like, well, you say this guy didn't do it, but you don't know who did. Well, what makes you? And I'm like, well, no, if you use the evidence to show that something couldn't have happened, it doesn't matter that you don't know what actually did. Like, obviously, that's the next thing you want to go on. But, to address those kind of people, which are a bulk, a lot of people, show why And I haven't really seen a series that just, I'm sure they're out there, but I haven't seen one that just does that. Get Oswald out of the way so you can start genuinely contemplating what actually happened and who was actually involved, and separating the myths and the circumstantial evidence from what you can actually prove. Mm, yes, and I wholeheartedly agree that it's been so corrupted. In fact, I haven't, well, I can show it to you. Um, Over here, this is my bookshelf. Really from like, there's like three books, and then these are like almost all JFK stuff on the top shelf. And I just bought a lot of books over time, and I'm so well. And some of the books I bought, like I have an original copy of the Warren Report because you kind of have to, even if you think there's a lot of problems with it. But I mean, there's probably at least three or four books on there that are full of misinformation. Probably the ones I haven't even tried reading. But like, I've got someone like Edward J. Epstein's work, and Edward J. Epstein, like he wrote a book where he was like suggesting conspiracy, and then suddenly he did two books that were like, it was Oswald, it was Oswald. Nothing to see here. But yeah, I have a series that I've literally gotten like 1 1/3 episodes done. And obviously I'm working on other stuff, but like that's a series that it's going to be a while before it comes out. But like I have an intro episode. I have an episode that's like, where was Oswald during the assassination? Where, then, and each episode mostly focuses on a specific piece of evidence. The rifle, the brown paper bag, the 3 shells that were found, the single bullet theory, the other remains of bullets that were found, the quality of the rifle, all those things, the backyard photos, everything that's been pretty much used as, quote, definitive evidence of Oswald's guilt. And they all have problems, severe problems, problems big enough that I can do a, 45-minute video on each individual piece of problematic evidence. And I know, obviously, that's just laying the groundwork, because then, you get past that stuff, then you start getting into the real meat of what happened, which is who was behind it, who did all that big stuff. But it's like not knowing the case and then just diving in. It's like, I live streamed about being a filmmaker the other day, and like the first film I really made was like we had to do a 5-minute little short film as a final project in this film class I took. It was like the first thing I'd ever done with that type of camera and all that stuff. And everybody loved it. They thought it was amazing. So what did I decide? I decided, oh, well, next term, I'm going to make a feature now. And it completely blew up in my face, you know? So it's kind of like the Oswald stuff is that little 5-minute film. And then the big picture is that big feature film I wanted to do that overwhelmed me. I think it's a metaphor that works. Oh, sorry. I got a little bit of a headache today. I need to drink some water. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff to get into. And I'm gonna, oh shit. And that's something that, I'm working on while I'm working on all of my other crap. Well, these other videos are kind of a one and done thing too, so they're not gonna take as long. But I also, like last night, my girlfriend started watching like some missing persons type videos, and I was doing a lot of that about a year and a half ago. I was covering a lot of like these really troubling stories from the like 70s into the 80s. A lot of them were happening in like the Salem Corvallis area, of women that had just disappeared, some cases of which were resolved. There was a guy I did a really long video on called William Scott Smith, who there were several women and a young girl too that they think maybe he's possibly guilty of killing her too, even though she didn't really kind of fit the type of victims he was going after. But And then I found out literally because I started researching more of that last night, like unsolved missing persons cases, unsolved cold cases in Oregon that I hadn't seen before. And I discovered like what I thought was going to be a fresh case. And then all of a sudden, as I started looking up info on that person, I found that back in 2012, and of course, I didn't know about this when I made my video on William Scott Smith. I found out that this woman back in 2012, he also confessed to her murder too. So I think I don't know, I can't remember if that's 4 or 5 people, but it was a big thing a couple years ago. William Scott Smith got busted. There was a woman named Sherry Irely, or yeah, Irely. I always messed up. I swear in the video I say her names, and she was a unsolved case for a really long time, and she had essentially she worked for Domino's, I think, and she had been contacted to deliver. I want to say it's like 1982. She'd been contacted to deliver a pizza to this address that was later found to be a fake address, but it led to literally, like, even today, it's like the middle of nowhere on the fringe of Salem. And then she disappeared. And it was like a cold case for like, I want to say like almost 30 years, something like that. And they ultimately found out that this William Scott Smith guy did it, and he was responsible for also abducting and killing a Willamette University student. And then there was another woman who was working at a like a Circle K, I think, who literally was left alone working her like late night shift. There was like a 30-minute period, I want to say, where she was in there alone, and in that time she just disappeared. And I think it was found out pretty early that William Scott Smith was the guilty party in that case, but it took a lot longer before Sherry Irely came up. And then this other case, I want to say her name was her last name was Monroe. I want to say Tammy Monroe. I can't. I looked it up briefly last night because I was looking up new cases, and when I saw that he'd confessed to that, I was like, okay, well, I don't need to do a video on this case. And then I was also like, great, now I'm finding out there was a whole other victim. But I mean, if you missed something you didn't even know about, like, it's not necessarily bad research. Literally, it never came up. Oh, that's interesting. Wait, sorry, I'm falling behind in the comments a bit. Yeah. Okay, yeah, and thanks for letting me know about your channels and your video content. I will definitely get over there. There was like when I first announced that I was doing, I'm so bad. Quarantine is making me an idiot. But yeah, when I first announced that I was going to be doing my JFK video series, someone responded to me and said that they'd been doing some investigation and they had their theories, and they gave me a video that they produced to watch, and that was like a month ago. It's still, I literally have the window open on my Mac right here, and I still haven't watched it. I'm going to. I just, I'm spending so much time working on stuff, and then when I get done working on videos and stuff, I'm wiped out. So I want to sit and watch something that I've seen before, sit on YouTube and veg out for a little while. But yeah, any place where I can get some new insight, new content on. Well, of course, YouTube is doing their best to, which I hate. It used to be so easy to find videos. Not that I'm just a conspiracy hunter, but it used to be so easy to find conspiracy related videos on cases like, any case where there's that situation, JFK, RFK, Martin Luther King Jr. And now, like, a lot of them have been taken down, and a lot of them are just really difficult to find because they get buried in the results. I can literally type like JFK, JFK assassination conspiracy. And, freaking BuzzFeed video will pop up, and it's like, oh, yeah, because BuzzFeed, I'm sure they've done their due diligence. So, yeah, it's so much harder to find content that isn't just your threadbare, like, Wikipedia encyclopedia description of what happened. And, of course, I like Wikipedia in certain circumstances, but Wikipedia is, any suspicious case, they just give you the general threadbare government story, and that's the fact. And if there's anything about a conspiracy, they'll be like, oh, people think a conspiracy happened, but probably didn't. It's like, wow. I mean, it is Wikipedia. It is kind of intended to be threadbare. So, but yeah, I hate that. That it's now like you gotta, I've started tried saving things into playlists so that I can still find them if there's a certain video I'm looking for. That way I'm not on here for 20 minutes like, oh my God, I'm typing the exact name of the documentary and the exact name of this and that, and you still can't find it. And sometimes that's because the video is just gone. So, yeah. Oh. Mm. And of course, yeah, I'm at 41 minutes. I was going to be on here for like 20 minutes, and then look what happened. But yeah, so I am still looking into, like I discovered I rediscovered some cases that I took some notes on that I forgot all about. And I want to, cover a lot of these cases are really old too, these missing persons cases. And I want to just cover them, because they need exposure. And I almost kind of want to, because there was a recent case in Portland that's still, it only happened a couple of months ago. There was a guy who I believe was a University of Portland student who had gone missing, and I think they found him in the Willamette River. That I kind of want to look into, just to see what there is to be seen out there, because they found this guy in the Willamette River, and they don't know if he took his own life. They don't know if somebody assaulted him. And I was seeing down by where I work, which is really far from University of Portland, which I went to University of Portland. And yeah, I was seeing posters like, have you seen this guy down by where I work, which is really far from there. And so I thought it was like a local missing persons thing. And then I found out it was actually somebody who lived really, or, had disappeared from a place really far away from where I lived. But the information was, and there was like another young man who had gone missing that I think returned home. Just crazy stuff has been happening the last couple of years in the Portland area. I gotta tell you, there has been a string of like just crazy gang behavior, like not even gangs, but just youth stuff. Hey, what's up? I'm live streaming, but it's not like my usual like, don't bother me. I'm just letting you know that my camera's on and I'm live streaming. And I'm talking about things I'm going to do, I'm probably going to stop before too long, though, because my voice is fading. I've already been on here for like 45 minutes, but I've been talking about stuff, But yeah, I don't know, I've kind of, it's weird. And there was like there was a guy in like his 60s who was killed by a couple of teenagers in St. John's. Like, there's weird stuff happening in St. John's over the past like year.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't know if you were still there.
Sorry.
Hello.
I was looking. Okay, you cleared up. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I took the food mess and whatnot up. yeah, no. So it's and I'm gonna eventually get it done. There was like a random thing that came up in St. John's. I don't want to say anything about it because I'm going to do a video about it. And if I say much about it, it's going to pretty much give the whole thing away. But anyway, it's going to be a video that I'm telling almost entirely in through like the use of still captures I got of a Facebook story. And I joined like the St. John's Facebook page, and I God, how is it after 5 o'clock? My sleep schedule is gone. But yeah, no, the St. John's neighborhood. There were these like, God, how old were they? Like 12, 13 years old, and they like killed this like 60-year-old man on the street. And there was like before that, like the months before that, there was a bunch of reports coming out of. I was seeing them in news stories. I was seeing them being posted on St. John's Facebook page of these like teenagers just raising hell and like harassing people, and it just came out of nowhere. It's like those like 60s and 70s movies you'd watch about like the youth of America just losing their minds out of nowhere and just going crazy and just nuts on the general public. Really freaking weird. So there's something there. There's substance to that story. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm kind of like talking for 10 minutes and then looking at the comments and realizing they've sped away. But no, I did hear about that. Wasn't it like the drowning that happened? I was listening to a podcast, and they like do it like twice a week, and they talk about at the start they talk about any like people of celebrity who have died since their last thing. And wasn't it like, I think they said it was like Robert Kennedy's granddaughter and her son. That's what they said. So I don't know if that's the definitive truth, but yeah, they ended up God. Oh man. Nowadays anybody passes away, you think, oh, it was a COVID-19, but you forget that, life goes on independently of this ailment. There's still people dying of other diseases. There's still, millions of people that are getting just the general flu and a cold, but of course you get that and you think, oh God, do I have it? And you keep forgetting that, for all the insanity that's going on and the quarantine and being, obviously inundated every day with the COVID-19 story or updates, you have to remember there's still just stuff going on in the world. People are still watching movies and things are still happening to people, and there's still people going out. And I've become addicted to the police scanner. We've been listening to police scanner a lot. Well, and I actually have a second video that I'm going to post soon where we've actually gone out with the police scanner on to try to like find, locations where crazy stuff. Obviously not like, if somebody's on the street, in the middle of the street with a gun saying they're going to start shooting people, we're not going to go into dangerous situations, and we're not going to compromise, obviously, what's going on. But we have become addicted to the police scanner, and I've started like recording it. It's amazing, especially in quarantine, the stories that you hear. And but yeah, and so I've been like recording the police scanner from time to time just to get the weird, funny stories. And yeah, it's entertainment. Well, of course, with the obviously with the state of everything changing, the state of crimes is changing. Like again, there's been a lot more domestic calls. In fact, I heard that like a couple weeks ago, police were like, we're not going to answer certain calls anymore just because we have so many domestic. Because, there's all these families and couples that can't freaking stand being with each other. And now they're stuck together. And so people are just snapping. But of course, more reports on potential burglaries, people sneaking around because a lot of businesses are closed. And, obviously, most hopefully have security cameras, alarms, whatever, but you never know which ones don't. And when businesses are closed, suddenly you have places with items, merchandise, what have you, and nobody's there. And then there's been and I saw this about a month ago. Um, I walked to the store around the corner, and I live right around the corner from a middle school. And as I was walking back, there was this guy, really beat up clothes, potentially homeless, maybe just a slob. And and there was nobody at the school. The school is after the school had been closed. There was like one or two cars there, so there's probably like a little bit of personnel there. And the guy he wasn't trying to get into the school, but he was like loitering out front. He was kind of doing this like the head bob thing and kind of looking through windows like he was trying, like he was, scoping the place out. And so I kind of paused and watched him for a second, and then he kind of eventually, I don't know if he noticed I was watching him, but he eventually just kind of walked out onto the sidewalk, and then just started walking off towards the main street. So, I didn't call the cops because obviously, I don't know what the guy, but listening to the scanner, listening to some of the recordings I made, there was a recording of a guy that like randomly crept into like, what was it, the elementary school in Woodlawn, which is up in North Portland. And I guess he just crept in and crept out and they were looking for him. I don't know if they ever found him, but yeah. I want to say there was a few other cases like that of people lingering near schools. And there was a horrible story I heard about that I think happened in Portland that my girlfriend told me about. God, I'm getting off on a very dark tangent, but yeah, no, it got posted on Facebook and just fucking disgusting. There was a woman, she was at home and I think she said it was her nephew was out playing in their yard, and there was this sketchy looking guy, and he was loitering by the fence next to their place. And the woman said that she heard the guy say like, I don't know. I read the story really quick, but he said something like, hey kid, come on over here. And just really, really sketchy. And I don't even remember. I want to say that they said that like he, unzipped his pants, and we all know what that means. And it was great because usually if there's some criminal needs to be pursued, they're like, don't pursue so and so, call the police. But this woman just witnessed her little like 4 or 5 year old nephew getting menaced by this just creepy ass bitch. And like, yeah, her and like everybody in the house like chased after this guy and tracked him down and made sure to keep him there till the police could get there. And I'm like, yeah, I would have had a hard time keeping from beating the shit out of the guy. I mean, I think any of us can understand that. Yeah, so just I don't know, there's some creepy people coming out of the woodwork as of late. So, yeah, people, I mean, I know most of us are quarantined, but geez, watch over your kids because there's weird stuff going on. I don't know how I ended up going this direction. I mean, I guess technically it does apply to my content because I've talked about the coronavirus thing, and I've talked about, following cases. Like, I don't want to spoil it too much, but like the video I'm gonna post. I'm sorry, I say every 15 seconds when I'm thinking of stuff, but we were doing it at night, so it was really hard to get any good video. I tried to brighten it as much as I could, but there was one case where there was a woman claimed that like a guy had pistol whipped her, and we ended up randomly going down this area that was practically like a dead end stretch, and all of a sudden we realized we were like right next to we were like right next to the home to where this had happened, and there was like two police cars parked, and they had a flashlight on a guy, and I'm like, that was probably the guy. I'll refrain from talking any more about that because obviously I don't want to spoil anything. I mean, obviously the idea is we get in the car and part of it is just getting out of the damn house for a few minutes without actually going outside. And we have the police scanner turned on, and we hear a story. It's like, that's crazy. We're going towards that. It's only 20 blocks away or something. And, try to distinguish between what things are going to be a quick, like 5-minute thing and which ones are going to take a little longer. Because if we're like 2 miles from something that's only going to take a couple minutes to resolve, well, by the time we get there, it's going to be done. And we just kind of, drive on by, and, I have my iPhone out and whatever camera I bring, and I just try to get what I can. And part of that's just hearing what is being talked about on the police scanner when we're not, places we can't get to. Like, there was one in the first video I did where there was like a guy that just showed up at a woman's house and was on her lawn, and he just peed on her lawn. So, I mean, again, probably something that got handled pretty quick, and it was too far away from us to get to. And also, I mean, the one like actual benefit of this is, let's say like the police are looking for someone and we're in the area, and we hear on the scanner a description, and then all of a sudden the police are like, we can't find the guy, and all of a sudden we pass a guy on the street, and it's like, oh hey, yeah, we're listening to the police scanner, and the guy you're looking for, pretty sure we just saw him at such and such. Because there's been a few cases that we've kind of followed where, in the last video I did, there was a guy that they were looking for battery, and we ended up like right in the middle of what was going on. And I swear, like an hour later, when we were done and going home, they still hadn't caught this guy, even though they literally cordoned off like I don't know, like a 6 square block area the guy was supposed to be in, and they still didn't get him. Which leads me to believe he wasn't in that area. Even though it looked like the police that were there were kind of just palling, or it literally looked like they didn't give a shit. To be honest, like we drove by these two guys and two officers, and they'd both just parked, and they like got out of their vehicles, and they were like shaking hands and chuckling and like not looking around for anyone at all, even though it was obvious that they were there to cordon off this area. But I don't know if they caught the guy, but whatever. Oh man. So yeah, just, I have the time, I'm trying to get set up to try to do film stuff in the summer, if this, things settle and the, quarantine gets to a point where at least I can feel safe going out and about. Granted, again, there's only reportedly like 16 people in my whole zip code that have officially gotten it yet. So, and yeah. It's just life. Life in the big city? I don't know. So yeah, so there's going to be a lot more content done. There's going to be a lot of stuff popping up. I already still have a lot of stuff that's just sitting and waiting. And I'm doing my like crazy stories while in quarantine, so on and so forth. And so there is going to be a lot more stuff coming down the pike for you all, even in this situation. And it's made it easier for me to do these videos that I keep putting off, And yeah. I really don't know what else to say. My throat is getting sore and I'm exhausted. Mostly just from having a poor sleeping schedule, but I gotta eat. I haven't eaten today, and it's 5:16 p.m. It's 5:16 p.m., but it feels like it's like noon to me because my sleep schedule is so off. My sleep schedule is pretty much 5:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. right now, seriously. And I don't know if that's going to change. I mean, it's obviously once things, get lifted or I go back to work, obviously they're going to have to change. They're going to change the hard way. And yeah, that's it. I can't. Yep. And I just ended my course. So yeah. I'm gonna eat something and then figure out what video I'm gonna edit today, if this headache ever goes away. Yeah. I'm getting this. Yeah, I might need to take. They say take 1 to 2 drops. I might have to take another drop of this. Yeah, I just made it to an. So I'm gonna head out, and remember, as always, like, share, subscribe if you so choose, all that stuff. And Yeah, some TV Avenger story, and catch you guys later.